The champagne flute shattered against the terracotta tiles like a gunshot in the quiet vineyard, shards scattering like brittle promises under the fading Andalusian sun. Ophelia froze, her green eyes locking onto her brother's face, twisted not in remorse, but in the raw fury of a man who just realized his trap had sprung on him instead. "You thought I'd come alone, Elias?" she whispered, her voice a velvet blade, as Kaya's hand tightened in hers, a silent vow amid the gasps of stunned wedding guests. Elias's laugh was a hollow bark, echoing off the ancient stone walls of the Hacienda del Sol, the sprawling estate in the hills outside Seville where their cousin's wedding had unfolded like a meticulously scripted farce. He'd orchestrated it all. The invitation couriered to Ophelia's cramped Brooklyn apartment 3 months ago, laced with that insidious undertone of familial obligation. Family sticks together, sis. No excuses this time. He'd known she hadn't brought anyone to the last reunion, hadn't dared after the whispers and sidelong glares that followed her coming out 5 years prior. Elias, the golden boy, the CEO of Vanguard Tech, with his corner office overlooking Manhattan's steel canyons and a boardroom full of sycophants, saw her queerness as a stain on the family ledger. A leverage point. Invite her here, to this opulent Spanish affair, neutral ground, far from American prying eyes but close enough to old-world judgments, and watch her squirm alone among the aunts clutching rosaries and uncles nursing grudges like fine Rioja. But Ophelia Voss, at 34, had learned to armor herself in the fires of rejection. She'd built a life in New York, curating exhibits at the Met's Contemporary Wing, surrounding herself with artists who saw her scars not as flaws but as brushstrokes in a larger canvas. The scar on her left cheek, a faint crescent from a childhood fall off her father's workbench, had become her talisman, a reminder that beauty could bloom from breakage. And Kaya? Kaya Rivera, 32, with her hazel eyes that held the warmth of a desert dawn and curls that framed her face like wild poetry, was no mere date. She was Ophelia's anchor, the freelance photojournalist whose lens had captured revolutions in forgotten corners of the world, from the markets of Marrakesh to the protests in Santiago. They'd met 2 years ago at a gallery opening in Soho, Ophelia's exhibit on displaced identities drawing Kaya's eye like a magnet to iron filings. What started as a shared glass of Malbec under neon lights had deepened into something profound. Late-night confessions over takeout falafel, road trips up the Hudson where they'd trace constellations with their fingertips, and quiet mornings in Ophelia's walk-up where Kaya's laughter filled the cracks in the walls. Now, as the sun dipped below the Sierra Norte, painting the vineyard in hues of amber and crimson, Ophelia stood tall in her emerald dress, the color of defiance. She joked when Kaya zipped it up that morning in their rented Seville Airbnb. The gown hugged her runner's frame, the one honed from pounding pavement along the East River to outrun the ghosts of family dinners where Elias's barbs landed like precision strikes. "You're wasting your talents on that museum gig," he'd say, his voice oily with concern. "Dad would roll over if he saw you chasing skirts instead of a real career." Their father, gone 8 years now from a heart attack that hit like thunder, had been the buffer, loving but distant, a stoic engineer who'd built bridges in Pittsburgh but couldn't span the chasm in his own home. Elias had inherited the ambition, the ruthlessness. Ophelia, the heart. The wedding itself had been a spectacle. Their cousin Sophia, radiant in lace that whispered of old money, exchanging vows with her finance bro groom under an arch of blooming jasmine. Laughter had rippled through the crowd like wind through the vines, but Ophelia felt the undercurrent. The way heads turned when she arrived, arm linked with Kaya's, their arrival in a rented Fiat that hugged the coastal curves from Malaga Airport. Whispers in Spanish and English. "¿Quién es esa? Elias's sister? With a woman." Elias had spotted them from the head table, his fork pausing mid-air over seared Iberian pork, his jaw clenching like a vice. He'd planned to corner her later, during the toasts, with a quip about bringing a +1 to compensate, delivered loud enough for the family cluster to hear. Humiliation as hors d'oeuvres. Instead, the shattering flute was his opening salvo, hurled in a fit after Ophelia introduced Kaya during the cocktail hour. "Elias, meet Kaya. The woman who's reminded me what family really means." The words had landed like a slap, and in the privacy of the vine-shaded terrace, away from the string quartet's mournful violin, Elias had erupted. "You think this is a joke? Parading your lifestyle here? In front of Abuela? Sophia's day?" Kaya's voice cut through first, steady as the Guadalquivir at dawn. It's not a parade, Elias. It's our life. And if that's too much for you, maybe the joke's on whoever invited us. Her accent, a soft lilt from her Puerto Rican roots blended with years in Chicago's newsrooms, carried the weight of someone who'd photographed orphans in Aleppo and widows in Kabul. She didn't flinch. Her hand in Ophelia's was a lifeline, fingers interlaced like roots seeking soil. Ophelia stepped forward then, her voice low but unyielding. You invited me, brother. Remember? That gilded envelope with the wax seal, like we were still kids playing at royalty in Dad's old study. The memory flickered. Elias, 12, crowning her with a paper tiara. Ophelia, 8, believing in fairy tales until the tiara crumpled under his careless boot. I came because Sophia asked. Because blood doesn't wash off, even when you try to scrub it away with your corner office polish. Elias's face, usually a mask of calculated charm, high cheekbones, dark hair gelled to perfection, eyes like polished obsidian cracked. Blood? You're the one who severed it off, coming out like some liberal manifesto at Thanksgiving. Mom cried for weeks. And now this. Dragging her here to what? Make a statement. The her hung in the air, a pronoun turned poison. Kaya stiffened, but Ophelia squeezed her hand. A silent not today. Inside, though, the old wound throbbed, the betrayal not just of Elias, but of the family that had chosen silence over solidarity. Their mother, Vivian, had sent a card after the coming out. We love you, but pray for guidance. Guidance from what? The God who'd made Ophelia crave the curve of a woman's hip like air? The flutes had multiplied then, guests clustering like moths to the drama's flame, but Elias waved them off with a barked private matter. As the sun vanished, leaving the vineyard in twilight's hush, Ophelia felt the weight of the moment settle like dew on the grapes. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a reckoning. She'd flown across an ocean not for humiliation, but for closure. For the sister who'd once shared secrets under quilt forts, now veiled in vows she couldn't fully celebrate. Sophia, catching wind from a tipsy aunt, had pulled Ophelia aside earlier, her veil askew, eyes brimming. I'm glad you're here. Both of you. A small mercy in the maze. But Elias wasn't done. You want closure? Fine. Stay for the reception. Dance with your friend. But don't expect me to clap. He turned on his heel, tuxedo jacket flaring like a matador's cape, leaving the shards at their feet. Kaya knelt then, gathering pieces with deliberate care. Her journalist's instinct to document, to salvage. He's scared, she murmured, voice like balm on sunburn. Of what you represent. Freedom he can't buy. Ophelia knelt beside her, their knees brushing the cool earth, the scent of crushed lavender rising. Or he's just an asshole with a corner office. But her laugh was brittle, cracking under the strain. Kaya cupped her face, thumb tracing the scar, eyes holding hers with that fierce tenderness that had unraveled Ophelia from the start. Then let's make him watch us shine. They rose together, dust shaken from hems, and re-entered the fray arm in arm. The reception hall glowed with lantern light, tables laden with paella and patatas bravas, the air humming with flamenco guitar. Guests parted like sea for them, curiosity laced with awkward sympathy. Sophia waved from the dance floor, her new husband beaming obliviously. Ophelia and Kaya claimed a corner table, clinking glasses of Tempranillo, toasting to uninvited truths. As the night deepened, the drama simmered. Aunts approached with veiled barbs. So modern, these American ways. Met by Kaya's disarming stories of her abuela's kitchen in San Juan, where love was measured in sofrito, not judgments. Ophelia watched, heart swelling. This was Kaya's gift, turning strangers into allies with a snapshot word. But Elias lurked, his toasts laced with subtext. To family, those who stay the course, no detours. The crowd chuckled uneasily, eyes flicking to Ophelia. It was during the cake cutting, Sophia's knife slicing through tiers of almond sponge, that the betrayal crested. Elias, microphone in hand for an impromptu speech, veered from script. Sophia, you've found your anchor. In a world of shifting sands, hold fast. His gaze pinned Ophelia. Not everyone does. The room stilled, forks hovering. Vivian, their mother, seated beside Abuela, flushed crimson, her pearls a noose. Kaya moved first, rising with the grace of someone who'd faced down warlords. Actually, Elias, she called, voice carrying like a headline. Anchors aren't chains. They're choices. She pulled a small leather-bound journal from her clutch, the one Ophelia had gifted her, filled with pressed wildflowers from their first hike in the Catskills. Ophelia's shown me that. Her exhibits? They don't just hang pictures, they tell stories of people like us, displaced but unbreakable. Murmurs rippled. Sophia nodded fiercely. Elias faltered, mic trembling. What's this? A TED Talk at my cousin's wedding. No, Kaya said, opening the journal to a photo she'd slipped in. Ophelia midlaugh at last Christmas, snow-dusted in Central Park free. It's a reminder. You invited her to humiliate, but she came with love. With me. She turned to Ophelia, eyes soft. And that's the real vow tonight. The room exhaled. Applause scattered then swelled, Sophia leading, Vivian hesitating before joining. Elias dropped the mic with a thud, storming out into the night. Ophelia stood, pulling Kaya close, their foreheads touching amid the chaos. You didn't have to, she whispered. I wanted to, Kaya replied. For us. As fireworks bloomed over the vines, Sophia's grand finale, the couple slipped away to a quiet balcony overlooking the moonlit hills. Ophelia's tears came then, hot and unbidden, soaking Kaya's shoulder. I thought I'd lost them forever. Kaya held her, rocking gently. You didn't lose family. You redefined it. Below, Elias's silhouette paced the terrace, alone with his reflections. In that moment, under Spanish stars that felt a world away from Brooklyn's glare, Ophelia glimpsed redemption, not in forgiveness forced, but in the quiet strength of showing up whole. The morning after the wedding dawned crisp and unforgiving, the Andalusian light slicing through the lace curtains of their Airbnb like a surgeon's scalpel. Ophelia woke to the scent of fresh churros wafting from the street below, Kaya's arm draped across her waist. A tether in the haze of half-remembered toasts and fireworks. Her body ached from the tension, muscles coiled like the springs in Elias's vintage Mustang, the one he'd bragged about driving from Madrid. But her mind raced ahead, replaying the night's fractures. The mic drop, Vivian's tentative clap, the way Sophia had hugged her goodbye with a whispered, "Thank you for being brave." Kaya stirred, her curls a tousled halo against the pillow. Penny for your thoughts, or should I say euro? Her smile was sleepy, disarming, the kind that had first hooked Ophelia at that Soho gallery. Kaya in a leather jacket, critiquing a neon installation with the precision of a sniper. Ophelia traced the freckles across Kaya's nose. Souvenirs from summers in the Bronx. Just wondering if I torched the bridge for good this time. Her voice cracked, the scar on her cheek itching like a warning. Kaya propped on an elbow, hazel eyes serious. Bridges burn when they're rotten, no more. You lit a match to make room for something stronger. She leaned in, lips brushing Ophelia's temple. A kiss like sunlight on stone. It was these moments that anchored her. Not grand gestures, but the everyday poetry of Kaya's presence. The way she'd photograph Ophelia's sketches at 2 a.m., capturing the vulnerability behind the curator's poise. They dressed in the golden hush, Ophelia in linen pants and a blouse the color of sage, Kaya in a sundress patterned with olive leaves, and ventured into Seville's labyrinthine streets. The city thrummed with recovery. Vendors hawking espadrilles in the Triana market, flamenco guitars strumming from shadowed bars. They wandered hand in hand, an unspoken defiance against stares that lingered a beat too long. At a cafe tucked in the barrio Santa Cruz, over café con leche and tostadas, Ophelia unburdened. It wasn't always like this with Elias, she said, stirring sugar into oblivion. We were thick as thieves. He'd sneak me into his treehouse to read contraband comics, Wonder Woman kicking ass while Mom preached propriety. Vivian Voss, with her Pittsburgh steel and Sunday school lessons, had raised them on hymns and high expectations. Dad's death had shattered that. Elias dove into Harvard business, Ophelia into art school, their paths diverging like forked rivers. Kaya listened, her photojournalist's ear attuned to the unsaid. And when you came out, he didn't fight for you. Ophelia nodded, throat tight. He fought against. Called it a phase at first, then a scandal when I started dating Riley. Riley, the architect with the laugh like wind chimes, who'd left 2 years back for a job in Berlin, citing Ophelia's baggage as the ballast she couldn't carry. The breakup had been a quiet implosion, leaving Ophelia adrift until Kaya washed in like tide. A A shadow fell across the table then, literal and not. Elias, sunglasses perched like a crown, stood there in chinos and a polo, looking every inch the Silicon Valley transplant. Off. We need to talk. Kaya's fork paused midair, but Ophelia waved her down. Here? Now. He slid into the chair uninvited, signaling the waiter for a court-a-deux. Up close the cracks showed, stubble shadowing his jaw, eyes bloodshot from a night of brooding. Last night was excessive. I overstepped. Excessive. Ophelia echoed, voice edged. You tried to out me again in front of everyone. That's not a step. That's a shove off a cliff. Elias winced, removing his shades. His eyes, mirrors of hers but hardened, darted to Kaya. And you bringing in the cavalry. That journal stunt? Mom's been crying all morning. Kaya's laugh was soft, not mocking. Crying from joy, maybe? Or regret. Either way, it's on her to process, not Ophelia to apologize. He leaned forward, elbows on the scarred wood. You don't get it. This family, it's all we have left. Dad's gone, Sophia's married off to some suit who'll ship her to London. If we fracture. His voice trailed, vulnerability peeking like light through blinds. Ophelia softened, despite herself. Then build Elias. Not with walls and weddings as weapons. She thought of her latest exhibit. Exile and Embrace. Portraits of queer immigrants in New York's underbelly. Their stories etched in light and shadow. Kaya had shot half of them, her lens finding the humanity in the margins. The conversation stretched, jagged but honest, Elias admitting the pressure of Vanguard's latest merger. The boardroom wolves circling. Ophelia sharing the terror of her first exhibit solo, post-Riley, when doubt had nearly drowned her. Kaya mediated, her questions like gentle probes. What did Dad say about love, really? Elias paused then. He said it was the only structure that didn't need blueprints. By the time they parted, Elias footing the bill with a gruff truce. The sun climbed high, baking the cobblestones. Ophelia and Kaya meandered to the Alcazar. Its gardens a riot of bougainvillea and Moorish arches, a palate cleanser for the soul. They fed crumbs to koi in tiled ponds, Kaya's head on Ophelia's shoulder as they watched shadows dance. He's trying, Ophelia murmured. He's human, Kaya replied. Like us. Flawed but fixable. That afternoon brought the second wave. Vivian's call, voice quavering over the line. Come to the hacienda, dear. Just us girls. Ophelia hesitated, but Kaya nodded. Go. I'll scout the old quarter for shots. Give you space. The drive back twisted through cork oak groves. Ophelia's Fiat humming like a confession. The hacienda loomed, its white walls bleached by noon. Sophia's discarded veil fluttering from a balcony like a white flag. Vivian waited in the courtyard, silver-streaked hair pinned in a chignon, hands twisting a linen handkerchief. At 62 she carried the weight of unspoken sorrows, widowhood, a daughter lost to the world. They sat under a pergola heavy with grapes, porcelain cups steaming with manzanilla. Last night, Vivian began, eyes downcast. I saw you truly. With her. The way she looks at you. It's how your father looked at me. Ophelia's cup rattled in its saucer. Then why the prayers? The distance. Vivian sighed, a sound like wind through willows. Fear, Ophelia. Of losing you to a world that chews up girls like you. She reached across, fingers cool on Ophelia's. Elias pushed me, you know. Said it was tough love. But love isn't tough, it's tender. Tears pricked unbidden. They talked then, really talked for the first time since the coming out. Vivian confessed her own youth. A crush on a boarding school roommate, buried under propriety's boot. I chose safe. You chose true. The admission cracked something in Ophelia, a dam bursting. Hugs followed, awkward at first, then fierce, mother and daughter clinging like survivors to driftwood. Elias arrived midway, hovering at the edge, then joining with a plate of biscochos. The trio, flawed, fractured, pieced a fragile piece over crumbs and confessions. Kaya's good for you, he said finally, almost shy. Reminds me of Sophia's fire, but steadier. Ophelia smiled, the scar crinkling. She's everything. As dusk fell, painting the groves violet, Ophelia found Kaya in the Plaza de España. Camera slung low, capturing the tiled bridges in golden hour. She ran to her, breathless, pulling her into a whirl under the cerulean dome. It worked, she gasped. They saw us. Kaya's grin lit the square. Of course. Because we're undeniable. They kissed then, slow and deep, the city's pulse fading to their own. A rhythm of reclaimed hearts. But as night cloaked Seville, a shadow lingered. Elias's murder call earlier, voice tight with unspoken stakes. The betrayal wasn't over. It was evolving. 2 days later, the conflict reignited. Not in shouts but in silence's stealth. Ophelia and Kaya had planned a side trip to Ronda, the mountain town perched like a crown on Gorge's edge, for a breather before flying home. But Elias texted at dawn. Family lunch at the hacienda. Mom insists. Bring Kaya. Olive branch or another vine to tangle. They went, the fiat laden with figs from a roadside stand. The table groaned under gazpacho and jamon, but tension simmered like the July heat. Sophia and her husband joined, fresh from honeymoon hints, lightening the air with anecdotes. Vivian beamed, passing bread like communion. Elias, though, was distracted. Phone buzzing incessantly, his laughs forced. It cracked during dessert. Flan wobbling like jelly as his phone lit up. He glanced, paled, excused himself. Ophelia followed to the study, heart thudding. Door ajar, she heard. No, the board can't know about the audit. If it leaks. Audit? Vanguard's golden boy cornered? He spotted her, slamming the phone down. Not now, off. What's going on? She stepped in, the room redolent of leather and old ledgers, Dad's ghost in every spine. Nothing you can fix. Bitterness laced his tone. Unlike your little drama queen act. The barb stung, reopening wounds. This about the wedding? Or scared I'll steal your spotlight? Elias laughed, mirthless. Spotlight? Try survival. The merger's tanking, insider leaks. If it hits, I'm done. Everything Dad built. He trailed, eyes haunted. Ophelia faltered. Why not ask for help? From me, from anyone. You? With your artsy crowd and parade floats. Venom. Pure. But beneath desperation, the boy who'd once begged her to hide his report card failures. Kaya appeared then, summoned by instinct, hand on Ophelia's back. Elias, leaks are my wheelhouse. I covered Enron's fallout. Know a guy at Reuters who owes me. He scoffed but wavered. Why? After everything. Because, Kaya said simply, family's not a transaction. It's a thread. Pull too hard, it snaps. The offer hung. Elias nodded curtly. Fine. Discreet. And the study exhaled. Later, over vino in the courtyard, he cracked open. The pressure, the isolation of the C-suite, how Dad's shadow loomed larger than skyscrapers. I pushed you away to keep my grip, he admitted. Afraid if you thrived. Ide crumbla. Ophelia hugged him, awkward in their adult frames. Then let go. Together. As Rhonda called the next day, gorge winds whispering secrets, they drove with windows down, Kaya's playlist of Joan Baez and Rosalia weaving through canyons. The town unfolded like a dream. Whitewashed houses teetering on Puente Nuevo's span, bulls grazing in emerald pastures below. They hiked to the Mirador, hands clasped, the drop a metaphor for risks taken. There on a bench etched with lovers' initials, Ophelia proposed. Not rings but promises. Marry me? Not today but someday. In a vineyard or a loft with churros or champagne. Kaya's eyes shimmered, wind-tossed curls framing joy. Yes. 1,000 times. Their kiss tasted of salt and stone, the world vast below. Betrayal's echo faded. In its place, a tapestry of forgiveness, woven thread by resilient thread. The flight home from Seville was a limbo of clouds and recycled air. Ophelia's head on Kaya's shoulder. The engagement's glow, a secret talisman against jet lag's drag. Rhonda had sealed it, not with fanfare, but with the gorge's roar affirming their yes. A simple band from a jeweler's in the old quarter, silver twisted like vines, now encircled Kaya's finger. Ophelia traced it absently, marveling at how something so small could ballast a life. Back in Brooklyn, autumn asserted itself. Leaves carpeting the brownstones like confetti from a half-forgotten parade. The East River mirroring the sky's bruised purples. Their apartment, Ophelia's, now theirs, welcomed with clutter and comfort. Canvases stacked against walls, Kaya's Nikon on the kitchen counter amid half-eaten empanadas. Work beckoned. Ophelia's exhibit opening in 2 weeks. Kaya pitching a piece on Spanish expats to the Atlantic. But the call came that first night, as they unpacked amid laughter and laundry. Elias's voice tinny over speaker. Off? It's bad. The leak hit. Board's calling emergency votes. I need that contact now. Kaya's network hummed into action. Emails to old sources. A midnight Zoom with a Madrid fixer who traced digital footprints to a disgruntled exec. It's internal sabotage, she briefed Elias the next morning. Screen shared in their sunlit living room. Your VP of Ops, jealous of the merger bump. Elias patched in from his hotel suite, holed up in Midtown to dodge paparazzi, rubbed his temples. Christ. How do you even? Gratitude warred with awe in his tone. Practice, Kaya said wryly.
Chasing truth in Vazones builds calluses.
Ophelia watched, pride swelling like tide. This was Kaya at her core. Not the girlfriend in emerald gowns, but the woman who'd smuggled film out of Damascus, her empathy a sharper tool than any lens. The fix took days, anonymous tips to regulators, a quiet resignation from the culprit, but Vanguard stabilized, Elias emerging singed but standing. His thank you arrived via courier. A bottle of 82 Vega Sicilia and a note in his precise script. You saved more than the company. Lunch soon? All of us. The all included Vivian, who'd booked a flight, her first to New York in years. Climax brewed not in boardrooms, but in the exhibit's shadow. Exile and embrace unveiled at the Met's rooftop garden. Under a canopy of string lights and October stars. Guests milled. Critics in tweed, donors with checkbooks aglow. Artists with eyes like hungry wolves. Ophelia, in a midnight blue sheath that echoed her scar's curve, delivered her speech with steady fire. These portraits aren't just images, they're indictments of silence, celebrations of survival. To the exiles among us, your embrace is our revolution. Kaya captured it all, clicks soft as breaths, her pride a palpable hum. Elias arrived fashionably late, Vivian on his arm. Her pearls traded for a scarf the color of Seville sunsets. They applauded loudest, Elias's whoop cutting through murmurs. Sophia FaceTimed from London, her squeal tinny but sincere. But the true crest came post-reception, in the garden's quiet fringe. Vivian pulled Ophelia aside, eyes glistening under lanterns. I'm proud, daughter. Of you. Of her. A beat. And sorry for the years I let fear speak louder than love. Ophelia hugged her, tears salting the silk. That's the embrace, she whispered. Elias joined, awkward trio morphing to quartet as Kaya encircled them. Arms a bridge across old chasms. Weeks blurred. Vivian extending her stay, bunking in their spare room. Once a storage for canvases, now aired with lavender sachets. She and Kaya bonded over markets in Queens, Vivian marveling at pupusas while sharing recipes for pierogies. Elias visited, shedding his suit for jeans, debating exhibit angles over beers at a dive in Williamsburg. You're tougher than I ever was, he admitted one night, skyline glittering beyond the window. Dad would have said the same. Betrayal's ghost lingered though. In Elias's hesitations, Vivian's occasional flinches at public hand-holding. But it paled against the mending. Family dinners where stories flowed like the Duera, laughter eclipsing old silences. Ophelia curated a private tour for them at the Met, Kaya's photos interspersed, portraits of their own fractured lineage, healing in frames. Winter crept in, snow dusting the bridges Dad once engineered. Christmas found them in Pittsburgh, Elias's insistence. The old house sold but a rental festooned with lights, evoking quilt forts and wonder. Vivian strung popcorn garlands. Sophia flew in, husband in tow. Kaya arrived with tamales from her abuela's recipe, her family video calling from San Juan. Abuela's cooing over La Novia Hermosa. The tree glowed, ornaments a mosaic of eras. Dad's brass train, Ophelia's clay handprint. A new one from Kaya, 2 interlocking hearts in silver. Toasts rang, to bridges built, not burned. Elias raised his glass last, voice rough. To Ophelia, for not coming alone. And for teaching us how. She met his eyes, scar crinkling in a smile. To family. The kind we choose. As midnight told, Kaya pulled her to the porch, snowflakes catching in curls. Happy? She murmured, breath fogging the chill. Ophelia nodded, forehead to hers. Whole. The new year dawned humanistic, not in grand gestures but quiet truths. Elias mentoring a queer intern at Vanguard, Vivian volunteering at a Brooklyn shelter for LGBTQ youth, their stories seeding Ophelia's next exhibit. Betrayal had been the storm, but love, their love familial and fierce, the sheltering oak. In spring they wed. Not in vineyards but a loft in Soho, walls alive with projections of Rhonda's gorges and Seville's arches. Vows exchanged amid laughter and tears. I choose you in exiles and embraces. Guests raised glasses. Family expanded, artists mingled with suits. Under a banner Kaya shot. Two women hands clasped defying drops. Elias walked Ophelia down the aisle, his grip steady. No traps this time, he whispered. Just pride. And as they danced, Kaya's cheek warm against hers, the world a blur of light. Ophelia knew. Humiliation's invitation had birthed not ruin but renaissance. A life unbroken, embraced.